A stylist whose passion for color is unmatched. With over 28 years of experience, Keya Neal leads a national revolution breaking textural boundaries that have long separated those in the hair industry. Keya's passion for hair color and education led to the conception of Kolour Kulture, an educational resource for stylists who are particularly interested in the science of hair color and how it interacts with various hair textures. Keya launched her cornerstone education series Texture vs. Race at the Energizing Summit hosted by the American Board of Certified Hair Colorists, ABCH, which has since become a nationwide movement with a summit of its very own. Through the evolution of Texture vs. Race and a REPAIRations movement, Keya is at the helm of the salon professional industry's diversity and inclusion movement, encouraging uncomfortable conversations surrounding race and hair texture. Now, Keya acts as a color educator, texture expert, and DEI consultant, working to create a more inclusive and understanding industry. Today, we're recapping the TVR Summit 2022. All right, you guys, I am joined by the one and the only, a repeat guest, friend of the podcast, Keya Neal, to unpack Texture vs. Race Summit 2022. Let's do it. Keya, how's it going?
Hey, Jeffrey, all the Read the Tease family. I'm doing good. Coming off of a high, so I'm good.
Well, the last time that we connected, you were at Paris Fashion Week, casual, no big deal. So where are you right now? Let's talk that. We're not in Paris. Where are we?
All right. So I'm not in Paris, unfortunately, but I am at home. Being mom, jumping right back into mommy mode, entrepreneur and actively just planning for next year. So we really hadn't slowed down, but I am at home.
I never would expect you to slow down. We are going to go backwards in time a little bit, though, and we're going to unpack the Texture vs. Race Summit, which just happened end of November. We are still buzzing on the Tease, and we wanted to make sure that people could get a little bit of a taste of what happened, because a lot of things went down. So if you don't mind, let's just kick it off. Let's do, for the people who have not been on the Tease, looking at our social, looking at your social, what was TVR in a couple of words?
All right. So in a couple of words, TVR was our attempt to unify and to bring community around fabric.
Mm-hmm.
It was to create a space that we could explore our healthy curiosity, gain understanding and experience around working with textures that you just simply weren't familiar with.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I mean, that is kind of putting a beautiful bow on what it was, but it was so much more. I mean, it can't be collapsed into a few words. There were three full days. So let's get into it. Day one, we show up in Baltimore. What is the venue? Because I feel like it was not to anyone who came through, but to our listeners who don't know where this took place, let's get into that.
All right. So that is the perfect place to start because choosing the venue was so intentional, and it was by design, and we didn't even really know it, right? Because first of all, we were on our third venue, which meant we also had to change dates 3 times, which threw Texture vs. Race in a state of we have to do this before the end of the year, right? So I just want to keep that in mind because when you're searching for a venue, it's like all the things have to line up logistically, but what we didn't count on is that it would align with our message. And so we ended up at the Frederick Douglass Isaac Maritime Museum. And that is a museum that actually is the building that was the first shipyard in the Baltimore Harbor owned by Black people. And unfortunately, it was burned down, but it was sold back to the community for $1, and they were to redo it, to replicate it, to try to restore it in some way, and they did that. And a lot of prominent Black people in Baltimore got together and refurbished the place and created where we were for the event. And so Living Classrooms created another addition to it, while really putting in a museum that helped us with the Frederick Douglass life and sort of, creating, even for the kids, there's a lot of interaction, but there's a lot of artifact, there's a lot of history. And so they devoted that to Frederick Douglass, but they also had an event space attached to it too. So I felt like walking into that space, it was just, I understood the assignment. I understood this. I understood that we had to go through all of that to get right to that very moment. So that starts there. And I believe that the venue itself helped send and helped relate the message that we were trying to send, because all of the history was in the walls. Like everywhere
Mhm.
you look was art. Everywhere you look was a reason to think and to feel. And that was day one, was getting people in the room to say, where are we? My God, what's happening here? So we almost like took everybody out of the state of, we're just coming to a hair show too. We just stepped into something that we don't even know what's happening. We don't know what we're in for.
Well, I mean, that was the big takeaway from us at the Tease. So our team came out, and we've been to a mess of hair shows, quote unquote hair shows. I'm throwing up the air quotes. This was not that, in the best way. And I think that, like, a credit to your team, the venue absolutely set the tone. I got like goosebumps now just thinking about it. To your point, what was up on the walls, what was being said on stage, really, really powerful stuff. And like, you felt that as soon as things
Yes.
kicked off, which is a feat in itself. All right. So like, we show up, it's day one. We're walking up our stairs. We're checking in, all of that stuff. We're heading into the venue, the space. What's happening? You did an incredible keynote. I'd love to like top line it for people, because this really built on that whole fabric and community that was the theme of the event, that is still with me, however many weeks later, that I can't stop thinking about.
I love that. So first of all, let me just say that when you came into the venue, we definitely took great measure in outlining and outfitting the entire venue with picture opportunities, with activation stations, with hair art, with different fabrics and stuff to interact with. So we created what we would have wanted to be like an experience from the door to the floor. Like seriously, like every which way, there was something to look at, something to feel. When we got to the first floor, because again, we had two floors, right?
Yep.
So the first floor, everyone came to for the meet and greet and did all the pictures and all of that good stuff. And then we took everybody to floor 3 when it was time to send them into the room. And I think that just the coming into the room itself was a moment. And you were able to capture that, Jeffrey, you and your team, of just what people saw coming into the room. And I believe that hearts were opened. I believe that people felt something immediately coming into the room. And I've been saying this, that I feel like the walls were talking and it was setting a mood. But we had put great intention to the stage. We had a custom stage. We had all the lights. We had the drapings, the beautiful drapings on the wall. And we wanted people to feel like we had created an environment conducive to safety, to community, but to being vulnerable in that space, knowing that this was our space. And it was intentional. It wasn't like just a hotel. It was a space that we curated. And I think my keynote, I wish I could remember everything I said in the keynote, but I know for a fact I wanted to outline not rules, but just things that people could take away and say, this is how we're going to conduct ourselves. This is what you can expect. This is what we need from you. We don't actually need people to say, I want to change. We just want you to have a reason to choose differently. And I felt like the whole weekend was going to serve as constant, how do I say this? I wanted the weekend to give people opportunity and give them proof that there was goodness in thinking outside of the box. It was great to open your mind, right? Change your mind, maybe shift your mind, open your heart, move your hands. Like we talk about that order. So I feel like day one celebrated the industry. Day one was more of an activity space, more hair show-esque.
Yep. And you had some heavy hitters. So let's get into that. Talk about intention, setting the stage for what was to come. The big guns showed up. So let's name drop some sponsors if we could.
All right. So we got to start off with our title sponsor, Joico. Joico was in from the beginning, right? Joico was our title sponsor. Our platinum sponsor, Salon Centric, showed up in a big way. They brought installations. They brought the big magazine shoot thing. I mean, they brought themselves to the table. They brought people their internal to the table. I thought that was really impactful to see. And they pressed about that. Like they were like, no, we want to be there. Like we want. And I was like, why are you sitting? You know, but I understood why, because
Hmm.
it was necessary for everybody from Joico, from Salon Centric to be in the building. Schwarzkopf was there. Mazzani was there. But I have to say, two of the big brands that we definitely saw uh, explosive showmanship from was Blonde Solutions and Naked Biasations. Blonde Solutions came and blew it out. Like they were kind of like the bridge and the hinge of,
Hmm. Hmm.
what does it look like when we talk about something that's so big, like bleaching and blonding, that's such a
Hmm.
big thing, big service. And how do we tie that into texture? Like they showed up in a big way. Essations opened the show. Working with our coaches, they came in and just slam dunked it, and everybody that had a space on the stage showed up and showed out. And I'm certainly
Truly.
proud of all of our coaches that was able to sit alongside some of the artists that were sent, but they got to really shine and really show a level of authenticity attached to every stage presentation. So I'm really excited about that. We had fake hair there, fake hair, not fake hair. Faye Kitambo is fake hair on Instagram, but we also had Air Professional
Hmm.
that showed up in a big way. She sent product for everybody. She wanted to be a part. Jenny Strebe, shout out to her. And of course, K18 came up, even at the last minute. They
Hmm.
showed up and they said, hey, we want to make sure everybody knows that we believe in this and we want to look forward to doing more of a streamlined partnership next year. And of course, one of our most impactful sponsors was Read the Tease. So they showed up, didn't they?
We were there. We were happy to be there. We talked about this offline. It was such a privilege, truthfully, for us to be there in that space. And we're gonna get into it. I mean, you created totally a new world, which was unlike anything that we had been to previously. And it felt
Yeah.
so important to be there to witness some of the conversations, which we're going to talk about, because there
Yeah.
were, in addition to heavy hitting brands, some heavy hitting combos that really got at core issues that we talked about on our last podcast and that
Yeah.
you have been calling out for years now. But before we get into that,
Yeah.
let's just for a moment celebrate, as you said, the coaches that were on stage. Truly incredible presentations. And we talked about this with most of the coaches individually afterward, like that they're not up for Naha right now, like that they got to get those submissions in for next year. Like all of that work was out of this world. Like the caliber, chef's kiss, the whole thing. So shout out to them. We will make a special point in our show notes. We are linking out to everybody's Instagram account. We want them to be followed. They should be followed. And I think that you did an incredible job of platforming people who maybe are otherwise overlooked that really need to be given, the stage. So shout out to all of them, because that presentation, the whole thing. And then there was a soiree. Can we get into the soiree? Because that
You know
was
what? Soiree was our idea to bring people together with a few
Mhm.
cocktails. And so let me tell you, after we were done, people just could not stop talking. I don't think
Yep.
anybody danced, but let me tell you what we did have. Salon Centric brought DJ Junior to the table with a huge DJ booth that looks like a boombox that I have
Boombox.
to
So
say,
cool.
personally, I was so attracted to that boombox, Jeffrey. Like I literally saw that boombox at like the hair shows, and my spirit, I'm a very spiritually connected person, right? Like
Mhm.
I believe in God. And I just kept saying, I have to have that at TVR. And literally I kept saying to them, if y'all don't bring anything, you have to bring the boombox, but more importantly, you have to bring Junior. Why? Because Junior was so aligned with TVR from the day we met him. He made it his purpose to support us in the ways that mattered the most. And he just, when he came, he did a fabulous job of keeping the mood, setting the mood, guiding the mood, closing the mood, highlighting the
Mhm.
mood.
Mhm.
Like I have to give him his flowers there.
Yep.
And I think the soiree was so amazing that he knew even how to carry the soiree just to keep people talking because they were so amazed and enamored by what was happening on the stage that we weren't dancing. But we were really in community
Hmm.
during that time. And it was a wonderful thing. Like I wanted to like do the electric slide or, do some dancing, but I don't know if anybody did. I didn't. I was so wrapped up in everything that was going on. But the soiree itself was just a great moment to close out day one, right before we jumped into the nuts and crux of day two.
Yeah, and you kicked it off. So you closed it, and then I think, like, to your point, DJ Junior, like the entire time there was a song for every single moment. It was like never a downtime, never a like, oh, what are we doing? It's really dragging. Like, again,
Mm.
flowers for him, flowers to you guys for getting that together, because the entire time it felt like the soiree never really ended in the best way.
I feel like the whole day was a soiree.
Hmm.
Like it felt like Junior made the whole day a soiree. Like I don't think anybody can say I know when it started and when it ended. Like
Yep.
there was a mood that just carried in throughout the entire day that made itself almost like a staple. It was just part of the day. And
Hmm.
it felt like, well, what would we have done without him? Like I almost feel like, what would that have looked like? Like really? And then at the end of it, just Salon Centric gifted me that booth. They gave it to me. Yeah, they
Wow.
were switching and doing some things and they're revamping and doing, they were like, we know you love it that much. Would you like to have it? So I have it. I took that thing home on my
What?
back.
I don't blame you. The booth is beautiful. Like the boombox setup is
Yeah,
incredible. We've got pictures, it's in videos. Like go and check everybody's social, find that.
yeah,
I,
it's
I don't
on
blame
there.
you.
Yeah, I love music. So it definitely speaks to my soul
Mm,
and it just helps carry everything else about me and my personality in and throughout. And I think that's how I get to ebb and flow in some of these spaces that get to
mm.
be tough for me. I don't think people realize how much music connects me to my sense of self and centering, but also to other people. I find that music is a way to really make people stay connected to the cause and to the message.
Well, and to that point, I mean, having been there in person, I think music functioned as a beautiful bridge through the days. So
Mm,
day one, day two, day three, because as we said, like there were some tough conversations around
yeah.
longstanding issues, some fresh, some not so fresh, and we're gonna get into that. But the music, cued in by you, like often you were the one that was like, "All right, let's roll to the next," and it was perfect. Like it just kept things going in movement. And one thing that I reflected on, and we talked about in our recap, is you had mentioned wanting people to be in a process, so that they were choosing, that they were moving, that they weren't sort of where they were, and that forward is the importance. And I feel like you and the conversations and the education that was imparted, plus that music, really helped us to like stay in that process, but then sort of push through to our own. So again, flowers
Yeah.
for everybody for that.
Kind of like it was kind of like the wind beneath our wings.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like throughout the hard conversations, we had those moments where we could just go, okay, okay, all right, let's take a breath,
Hmm.
let's
Hmm.
take a moment, take a beat, and then
Yep.
we come back to it. Because
Hmm.
like you're saying, and I did say, when people are in this process and they buy into the message of elevating the industry and elevating our mindset, people have a tendency to make things about right or wrong
Hmm.
versus about choice, right? It's about the process. It's like you said, it's only about moving forward and trying to make different and better decisions that beget a different result at all
Hmm.
times. It's
Hmm.
about stopping yourself and taking a moment of inventory and accountability about whatever it is. And it's also about creating a level of conviction in your heart. Because again, if your mind is open, right, and your mind is moving and saying, oh, let me be proactive, let me stop for a second, let me think about why I'm thinking this, then I give my heart a chance to get in and go, no, you don't really believe that. That's just something your mind is telling you. You don't really believe that. And then you get a chance to move differently, which is your hands. You get
Hmm.
to show up differently. And even if we fail forward. we fail knowing that, okay, I didn't do that right. I didn't make the, the decision that would have gotten the best result maybe. But how do I take accountability for it and move on? And
Hmm.
that's what process is. Nothing just happens. We didn't think people were just walking and go, all right, it's all good. We all on 100 right now. No, it's like we're
Nope.
in the beginning, but we're in a process. But I
Hmm.
think everybody was touched and everybody left with a sense of responsibility for themselves.
For sure. Something that you just mentioned, a beginning, I want to get at that. Something on stage that was mentioned a couple of times was that this TVR was a first for a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
I would love for you to sort of break that down for our audience who wasn't in the room. What have previous TVRs looked like as compared to this one? Let's unpack that a little bit.
So I'm not only going to preface with this is the first of TVR's kind, like the first TVR
Hmm.
of its kind, but I also want to say it's the first of its kind of
Hmm.
any hair show or gathering, right? First of
Hmm.
all, TVR has been done, this would have been the second live, and we did two digitals.
Hmm.
No, I'm sorry. We did three lives and one digital. Three lives. The first one was really small, just a community of people. The second one, we had more people. Well, the second one was digital, and the third one was live again. But this one was different for a lot of reasons. One, we had an all black spotlight showcase. All of the
Hmm.
artists that showed up to educate was black. And that's so important to highlight because we have never, ever had
Nope.
one, an all black lineup. Secondly, we had the first time ever in my life, my career, and I've done a lot of shows. This might
Hmm.
be, I think, like my 11th or 12th retreat show,
Hmm.
whatever. And I'm telling you, we were majority not black in the audience.
Hmm.
That was huge.
Hmm.
It was the first time we had major sponsors come in a big way to what would be considered a small show and still show up big and allow our coaches to take their stage when they don't necessarily work for them.
Hmm.
Like that was
Yeah,
huge.
it's rare.
And then we
Doesn't happen.
are absolutely the first to approach hair and DEI in
Hmm.
one setting.
Hmm.
First, never seen the conversation go down like that, like a town hall where people were encouraged to be vulnerable and to really bring up the ugly of the industry, but with a sense of trying to resolve it or at least gain understanding of it. So when we ask people, if you watch the videos, especially the one from the Tease, when they were walking in, there was this bridgeway that had a lot
Hmm.
of windows. And we
Hmm.
asked people when they came that over the weekend to one, set their intentions, and two, to record or just let us know what their biases were. And they were
Yep.
anonymous and they put little hearts all over the walls. So when you see those windows with all of those little sticky tabs, those were pain points.
Hmm.
Those were areas that we needed to talk about. And so I think that we did a great job of creating the first of its kind. So to me, I feel like we made history. We made history in that room.
I couldn't put it better, truthfully. That's what it felt like. So sitting in that space, it felt like this is new, this is different, this is special. And a lot of that has to do with, I mean, you mentioned the sort of intention setting, people getting in the right space, being vulnerable, being open. But what you guys had done in terms of curriculum, so the planning, particularly, I think what was beautifully done was working with the models. So a lot of what happened on day one was breaking down groups, working with a model, to represent all of the different hair textures. So there was quite a lot of, you talk about like the macro spectrum, like there's
Yes.
so much representation, which is rare in itself because you often don't have that at hair shows. So people being split up into the groups, going and witnessing a consultation with the artists, the coaches. And then that whole process, you invited people, and as you mentioned, non-Black people, lots of white folks, to touch people of color's hair. And that's not something that happens, period, really ever.
No.
And this opened up really, really tough combos. You talked a
Yeah.
lot about, and I was witness to it, consent, how painful it was for some of the models to do what they did in terms of volunteering themselves, allowing people to touch and manipulate their hair, and people that had never done that having an opportunity for the first time. And then like the millions of conversations that were happening around that. So I would love to sort of honestly talk to you about like, how did this come to be? Like, what did those conversations look like when you were talking with the models, with the coaches? Because I felt like that was the most impactful bit. Like this was hours and hours, and it was just like the most hands-on, literally learning. I think that people in decades had done that was happening in like, clips, hours.
So you know what the thing is for me when I thought about how do I make this work? How do I take the parts of us that say, let's not do that and switch
Yep.
it around and go, no, but let's do that, but
Yep.
do it intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
coif it so that everybody is prepared. Because let's just be honest, there's a there's a stigma around white people and their privilege and feeling that they have some type of entitlement to black
Mm-hmm.
bodies. So
Mm-hmm.
that touching the hair has been cited as a faux pas. Like we look at
Yep.
that like that's an aggression
Mm-hmm.
towards us, right?
Because it,
Towards
it
black,
often is. Yep.
and it is
Yep.
without consent, right? When you just go, oh my God, I love your hair. Can I touch it? Like a lady, can I tell you something? I have
Yeah.
not talked to anybody about that. Happened to me in the elevator at the event. And I literally, the
Oh
lady said,
no.
oh my God, older white woman.
Um,
She says, I love your hair. She says, do you mind if I did
yep.
like this? And she
Mm-hmm.
said, look at it. And I said, absolutely. But I definitely had to put some space because I think she thought in that moment, because she did, she got closer to me and her
Yep.
hands started to reach. And I
Yep.
literally,
Yep.
went like, whoa, wait, like we're not doing that. And then she said, look at it. And I said, you can. And so that was a level of conversation,
Mm-hmm.
right? About how to do that. How can you appreciate something, love it and leave it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to share that we had all types of models, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had non-black models, we had straight hair models, we
Yep.
had wave hair models, and
Yep.
we tried to cover the entire macro spectrum of texture. But of course, we know that we could never have done that in one day with
Yeah.
any set. But we did try. We put
You
our best
tried.
effort
Mm-hmm.
forward. So, because again, I want to acknowledge that there are actually black people who have never touched someone's white, their hair, Caucasian hair. Let me
Mm-hmm.
say it, and I'm doing air quotes for
Yep.
Caucasian hair.
Yep.
Like they've never had a white person in their chair. Now, that's not everybody's story,
Right.
right? But there are some that are just not familiar with that hair because they're used to doing what's familiar, right?
Yep.
But the idea of talking to the models and setting up a precedent of saying, this is why we're here. You are here to help us advance this industry. So we want you to feel comfortable. We want you to understand that this is not a petting zoo. We do
Yep.
not want to invade your space or make you feel uncomfortable in any way. And if you're not comfortable with that, we understand. But there was a conversation that needed to be had with each individual model that said, there will be people touching and learning from you. Are you
Mm-hmm.
willing? And they had to consent to that.
Yeah.
And that's important that you honor. And that's what we asked of the attendees. Honor that person, respect,
Yep.
approach with respect,
Mm-hmm.
you know, act like she's doing you a favor, like she's
Mm-hmm.
she's just giving of herself for your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe everybody did. I believe everybody heard it for the first time, maybe like that when you approach, your hands are dirty. And I don't mean physically dirty. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, because
Yep.
if your mind isn't changed, your heart's not working
Yep.
together, your hands are dirty. So we said, understand that your approach has to be maintained. Your approach has to be managed when you're touching this person because it could easily be interpreted differently. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that the models understood that going in, and they agreed. The ones that didn't,
Yep.
but the ones that did agreed, and they went forth.
And then that whole experience parlayed into working with mannequin heads that were textured hair. The whole point of people getting hands in hair. Day 3, there was a whole room full of people, hands in hair, doing cutting, doing coloring. It was incredible. That's when there was even more music, singing, like that was like, for me, like the party really, really didn't end in the best way, because it was like people had built up confidence. They like let down a little bit of the walls, the like things that were
Yeah.
keeping them sort of together. And then it was like, this is a party. Like, we're here to learn. And you had like incredible breakthroughs, like left, right, and center. Everybody was like talking, oh, I didn't know I could do it. And then the coaches coming through. I just felt like that was masterful too. So flowers to you guys for making that happen. Because to what we've been talking about, that doesn't happen at hair shows. It's a lot of
Let me
talking.
tell you this. Let me tell you this. I don't want to cut you off, but I don't want to
No.
get far away from that point that you were making. The part that we did also that I have never experienced is we took the experience of working with the models with water.
Mhm.
And not only just the consultation, but we put them in the sink. We made in this room, because this wasn't a salon. So
Nope.
we mmade shampoo bowl
Yep.
stations with some great ingenuity.
And lots of
And we
patience.
created lots of patience. We created the opportunity for people to see how the hair reacts, how
Mhm.
to approach the hair, how to detangle the hair, how to shampoo the hair, how to care for the scalp, how to read the hair, how to understand the fabrics, how to understand what it needs, what are the characteristics of each one. And we developed an eye so that people could say, I no longer approach this person from a racial perspective, but
Mhm.
from a fabric perspective in an individual capacity.
Honestly, now that you're talking about that, because there was so much happening, to your point, there were hours where people were
Hours.
heads in bowls, having water poured over, and manipulating and shampooing and conditioning. And this was the time, to your point, where people were like, oh,
That's where
oh,
the
and
ahas happen.
exactly, you were breaking it down, making people more comfortable with, and you said this a couple of times, and it stuck with me. Like, it was never about the person in the chair. Like, it
It
was
was
about
never about
them.
that. It was not about their
Yep.
hair. It was about the person in the chair. We
Yep.
have the capacity to learn anything we want to. We are brilliant minds.
Yep.
We're artists that play with chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
right? We try to marry the two together. It was never about the hair. We always had the capacity to learn. We had we were reserved and we could not understand why we had this resistance to learning, and it was all about the person in the
Yep.
chair. And so we had to break that down, that your fear is misplaced. Your fear of working with this person has to do with your lack of education,
Mm-hmm.
not because this person has any other things to contribute to your fear, like their race or
Mm-hmm.
their actual hair texture. Is not the texture is not causing you a problem.
Right.
Your understanding of it is. So for us to be able to walk through what would seem like the most basic understandings, that is the space where we could see the walls coming down,
Mm-hmm.
where people were like, oh my God, I have never touched this hair. I didn't know it would look that different if it was wet. I didn't know how to, I didn't know how to use what I already know and apply it to this texture or
Mm-hmm.
this process. And you could see the light bulbs going off. It's like I had a whole box of light bulbs that I wanted to hand out, and every time it had like little paper clips in them. And every time I wanted them to do that, but of course I forgot. It probably got lost in one of the boxes. But we wanted people to be like, I got something, because when you see people chiming off, like I
Mm-hmm.
got something, something clicked for me. It is there's an energy that simply overtakes the room.
Yep.
And that's what was happening. We were seeing it moment to moment. And every time Junior would go, "Bow, bow, 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 bow," and it meant we had to switch groups,
Mm-hmm.
you could see people going, no.
Because
It's
they
like
wanted more.
pulling children away. It's like pulling
Yep.
children away
Even
from
though
the
they were
park.
going to go to the next station and have their mind blown out about what was happening there. But you're right. I mean, it was
Right.
exactly like people couldn't get enough of it. And then, to your point, we're handing out mannequin heads at the end of that day. People
Yes.
using that energy, going home, prepping the mannequin head for working with next day. And that day was packed, hands in
Yes.
hair, full day,
Full
incredible.
day.
So cutting, color, all of it,
All of
with
it.
like the best soundtrack, the best instruction, with like world class. And again, for hours at a time, which like I can't understate, because at hair shows, it tends to be like, oh, it's like a 15, oh, it's a 30, it's a 40. I mean, we're talking like long clips of really beautiful instruction for stuff that people just haven't had, for a lot of reasons, interest or access to. So again, just loved what we were seeing, but I want to hear from you. Like day 3, there was a lot of stuff that had happened. What was like your take on what was happening? How were you feeling about things at that point?
At that point, Jeffrey, I had resolved to the fact that we had nailed it.
Mm.
I'm gonna be honest. I had no worries. I was
Mm.
floating around like easy breezy because the work had been done. This was just putting the pin in. We were just
Mhm.
buttoning it up at this point because now we got your attention. Now we've taken you through all the things. We've had the DEI conversation from day 1 that lasted about 45 minutes or so. We
Mhm.
set the precedence for it. We did another 2.5 hour talk the next day, right? That went longer than we were supposed to, but it was
Mhm.
great. Like we
Mhm.
got to wringing the towel a little bit, right? And
Mhm.
then by the third day, people were ready. By the third day, all the shock had gone,
Yep.
all the fear had gone, all the
Mhm.
resistance had gone, the walls had been let down, and they were just ready to receive whatever else we had. So, of course, having another DEI town hall that overtook, it was like on the break. I remember saying, go on the balcony and scream. Like,
Mm.
if that's what you got to do, like, I
Get
want
it
you
out.
to go on the balcony. I want you to go outside. I want you to take a moment and breathe. And then when we get back, we're going to dive right into it. And then our artists just took the stage and wowed it. Like, right? They took the cutting series and we brought models back from Blonde Solutions
Yep.
and we had all this color plus the cutting kind of going on at the same time
Mhm.
visually, right? And then we have the execution of it and the coaches are on the floor like they're just taking it like who needs what? Show me what
Mhm.
you got. Let's do it. And I think everybody felt like they were being handled and they had some level of one-on-one and encouragement. So I do feel good about that. By the time we got to color, we were running out of time. And so it was really great to see people say, we knew that we would cut some of the hands-on of the color, but we gave the theory anyway. And then we
Mhm.
gave the techniques. And then we said, do it to perfect the technique, but take it home to finish and then complete it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And people were fine with that. So by the time we got to the graduation, the champagne toast, and we could do without talking about them, making me cry like a baby. I could do without that. But
Shout out
by the
to Ebony and Danielle. That was really powerful stuff. So we
AKA
won't get
Ebony.
into it too much, but yeah, they did the damn thing. They were making me, we were all emotional
We
at
were
that
all
point.
crying.
But
Yes.
yes.
But day 3 was the button up. It was the point where we said, now you're ready.
Mm.
Let's get into it. Let's do what you normally do, but let's do it with this.
Mhm.
And I believe people left feeling empowered, feeling a sense of I don't know if everybody exactly said they felt like super, super confident, like I'll just run and do it. But I think they felt inclined to say, but if I just stop for a minute and tap in
Mhm.
and remember what I learned, I can be confident in going forward. And I got a lot of feedback from people that said that. Like, I don't know how to express or to vocally share what I'm feeling, but it's sitting right here in my throat. It's sitting in
Mm.
my heart. I'm just going to sit on it. I'm still processing. Like, that's what we got a lot of. I'm still processing. I know I loved it. I know my life has changed,
Mhm.
but I don't know how to really verbalize it right now. And our answer to that is don't
Yeah.
activate on it. Don't tell us about it. Show us about it.
Show us about it. I love that. And you really got that feeling, being sort of a spectator to it in the audience, like that there was all of this energy and it was gonna go somewhere at the close. And like I'm so excited and hopeful that it's gonna be sort of channeled into, this forward momentum that you're talking about. And that's going to be testament to TVR. So again, shout out to you guys for the event, which brings me to I want to know what's next, because we were all like, all right, well, we could do another couple, like 3 more days, like let's just tack it on. Like we didn't want to leave that space, which is a testament to, you know, the environment that was created. So what's 2023's plans?
All right, let me go ahead and tell you. When we did the DEI conversations, and I just want to say that we created a very safe space. So
Mm-hmm.
to actually talk about what we talked about exactly would be saved for us to talk about the subject matter itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's opening it up. That's what we're
Yep.
going to do. But I'm going to tell you, it also allowed people to understand and appreciate being able to talk through
Mm-hmm.
the thing.
It
And
felt
it's
like
not
therapy.
about, yeah, it was, because it
Yep.
wasn't like you're wrong, like
Yeah.
you shouldn't see that. It was like, tell me why that's wrong. Tell me,
Mm-hmm.
what am I missing in that? Because in my mind, I'm thinking this, but in your mind, you're saying that. And it created a level of conversation that was so layered
Mm-hmm.
that it was cloaked in understanding. Just the option to even see it a different way was phenomenal for me. And I think people came with the, tell me why, tell me why, what is the implications of this, that, and the third, right? Like a lot of people would say to me, well, how, if you're for diversity and inclusion, and I have heard this a couple of times, then why do you keep having a divisionary measure? Like you keep saying, the Black artist spotlight. And I said, did you ask that question when we weren't in the room? But were you okay with us not being there? So,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when you flip things and you give people a chance to understand, it's like, can you understand that equity has to come before equality? So while we are pushing for equality, equity has to happen first. Otherwise, we'll never be equal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that conversation is deep, and it's a concept that has to be understood not just in the mind but in the heart. You got to
Yep.
accept that equity and reparations live from a heart space, not a mind space. And we got to do that in that area. And I love that. So with that being said, we're going to do a town hall. We're going to do all talking,
Okay.
all communicating, all questions. We're going to do sessions. We're going to have breakout rooms. We're going to have guest speakers. We're going to have, we're going to have Black activists and racial leaders. We're going to have trainings on how to see yourselves, how to the mindset, like just understanding the laws, the systems, like how are they playing out? How do you approach it? How do you change things? And I think having people have that time to do that when they buy into it, because it's tough, it's a lot, it's
Mm-hmm.
not for everybody, but for the people who say, I want in, and I want to have a voice, or I want to hear the voices, this is the opportunity. So we are going to launch a town hall meeting that's no hair, all of the wonderful things that we experienced, but even more. So
Mm.
we'll have, like I said, it's going to be awesome. When you talk about breakout rooms and sessions and, activities, things to really get us going. Like when we talked about sharing something really sensitive with someone in the room.
Which was, to be clear, y'all, first day, like 15 minutes into the keynote, turning to our neighbor and disclosing something that stuck with me. So, and shout out to my neighbor, Steph Marrow.
Oh, that was your neighbor?
We
Okay.
got into it in a good way. I feel like that also helped to set the tone for, like, to your point, fabric and community. We were building community whether or not we wanted to in that very minute, like first,
Every minute.
you know.
Yeah, having to pull your drawers down for someone that you don't know definitely creates a level of vulnerability in the
I'll
room.
say. I
And
like had to look
accountability.
sideways later.
Yeah,
Steph,
you're
like,
like, did I really
it's like
tell
it
her
wasn't that bad. I'm like, all right,
that?
whatever.
But it does. It's like now someone knows something. I've had to be vulnerable. I've had to listen. I've had to
Mm-hmm.
work on not judging. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody has to have an exercise in that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge activity. That creates and sets the mood, because you got to walk by that person every day and know somebody in this room has either heard something or said something
Mm-hmm.
that needs to create a level of safety and trust. You had to commit to safety and trust in the room. And that's what that was for. So there'll be more things like that to help us engage in conversation and engage in understanding where we are as a person. Because that's a direct reflection of how we show up in the industry.
Well, I feel like I need DJ Junior in here with sound effects, with like the pew pew pew,
Junior,
because just like cue him up. I'm so excited. This is big news. You heard it here on the Volume Up podcast. We're gonna be there, so
yes, you are
raising our hands. We want to be at the event. Congratulations!
I got one more.
One more. What?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm gonna go
okay, all right. Keep going.
When you put it out, you got to do it, right?
Yeah, you got to do it.
So we understood that there's a need for us to approach the schools, because when we realized that this education, this disenfranchisement and this segregation is really bred in the schools. And because the teachers are not educated, even if we change the curriculum, they won't be able to teach it with confidence. So we're going to do a TVR Educators Edition that's just for the schools to send their teachers, their faculty, their admin, their directors to TVR to do exactly what we just did, but only for the educators. And we're going to go through the curriculums. And we're going to show them, how do you have more inclusive language? How do you massage your infrastructure into being more inclusive from the jump? And how do you put that into how you actually manage your students' career path? Like, all of that has to happen and in individual pockets. We got so many people that kept saying, I want you to come to my school. I want you to send somebody to my school. And I'm like, we would never, if we work 365 days a year, we would never be able to touch the people we wanted to. So we said, how about we have one space and bring everybody? So we're actually going to do an educators edition. And I'm super stoked about that. I think we talked to 2 schools yesterday that had and one today that's got they've got the hands on all of the associations with all the schools. So I imagine that event being super huge.
Oof, I can't wait to see it. This is big news. You heard it here. Congrats. Again, the sky's the limit for TVR. So these are 2 events. I'm sure there's going to be 4 the next year, 5, and good for you. Congrats. All right, Keya, we're buzzing about all of this. We want to take that energy into the new year. Before I let you go, we've got our quick takes. These are revised for season 2. So these are not the same ones that we went through before. Not the same ones. So let's just
my thinking hat on.
Enjoy them for a second. First question. First one. You're on a deserted island. You can only bring 3 beauty products. What are they?
Soap. I gotta have soap.
Okay.
I gotta have deodorant. I don't care if it's just me. Can't offend myself.
I gotcha.
And lotion.
Boom. Beautiful.
Moisturizer. Gotta have.
Gotta keep it right. All right.
Gloss.
What was the first ever product that you owned, beauty or hair related? What is the first one that you remember buying for yourself? This is mine, for me, beauty hair.
Eyeliner. Black coal eyeliner. I love you. If you catch me with eyeliner on, honey, we personal.
Wow. I love this. All right. We talked a little bit about this. So are you superstitious, and about what?
Okay, this is going to sound really weird. A couple things. They're old wives' tale, but I can't help it. One, I don't like putting my purse on the floor. I think, they used to say it makes you broke. But I don't like splitting poles either. I don't know what that's about. I think let's get on the same side. I'll go way out of my way to push you and just speaking negative.
Okay.
I'm learning to control the mouth.
Okay. I like it.
But I am superstitious. The purse thing. I'm like, don't, and especially if it costs a little money, we're not doing that.
Amazing. Who would play you in a biopic of your life? And I see this in the future. So who's it going to be?
Regina Hall. I love Regina.
Yes, yes.
Regina is me. She's funny. She can be serious. She can be boss about it. But she does it in a way that people find palatable, but she still stands in for strong messaging, right? I love Regina Hall. I've just
I
really
have
started to
a
love her.
magazine of Regina. She's on the
Do
cover, but
you?
I cannot, I'm not messing around. When I left Baltimore,
Yes,
I bought Bust magazine starring Regina Hall on the cover. It's meant to be.
it's
Love.
meant to
Plus, she's from the
be.
DMV, so we love that.
Yes,
We
I
love
love
Regina.
Regina Hall. Yeah, I think she could do me. I think she would bring enough, but enough funny. I think she embodies me.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect. I love that. I can see this too. So, all right,
yeah,
casting directors, when we're working on the rights to this, let's
right.
make the casting right.
Go back to this.
Yep. All right. One last question, and I'm going to let you go. And it's appropriate because it's the holidays.
Okay.
What is the ultimate comfort food?
This not really a holiday thing for me.
No, it doesn't have to be holiday. Whatever's comforting.
Soup.
Soup.
Any creamy loaded baked potato, clam chowder, cream of crab.
Doesn't matter.
I'm gonna get soup everywhere I go if they have it.
Okay.
Anything like soupy, potted soups. Yep, love it.
I thought
That's
you were going to say macaroni and cheese.
you know what? I was going
This is an
to.
inside joke for people that were at TVR. They would know if you. Sorry to
I
everybody.
should have said
I
macaroni
couldn't
and
help
cheese.
myself, Keya.
But let me tell you, I do love some macaroni and cheese now. Let me just tell you. And when you listen, one day we'll tell the joke,
Yeah.
but for
Yeah.
now.
For now. Well, Keya Neal, thank you so much for coming on and recapping the TVR 2022. Big things for 2023. Best of luck. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. All of the things.
Same to you and your team. And I would be remiss if I did not thank you once again for being the gift that we didn't know we needed. Your team, you and your team were necessary for this event to happen the way it happened. Being able to recall and to be able to show people and get into the space, I feel like you were in the walls, and when I say the walls were talking, I feel like that was you. You were there, and you were there to capture moments that we didn't really know we needed to capture, and it felt like the emotion was coming out of the pictures and the videos and just the captions that you had. And Lord knows the article that you wrote was amazing, and I think that you absolutely deserve this thank you, and I would be upset to know it did not make the podcast
Well,
because you being buying in personally too is what I loved about it the most. I can feel your energy, and it showed up big time. It showed up. And one of the things that I will say in leaving is that if we could do anything, we want to affect change, and we want to touch everybody. I don't care what your position. I don't care if you
mm,
move in chairs to a
mm.
venue. If we can touch everybody associated with it, then we have done our job. And you let us know that we were doing it, and we appreciate you so very much.
Well,
So
it is that it's so very kind of you to say those things. Honest to God, we felt the way that we did because of what you guys were able to do for us in terms of opening up that space, making it safe, allowing us to have the the proximity to like really tough stuff, as well as like beautiful instruction. Like I just, again, flowers for you, flowers for your team. Thank you. It means a lot. Can't say it enough. We are going to link to every single coach, content creator. There were photographers, videographers, Eugene, like there was a million people behind the scenes that made this come together. They deserve your attention too. So check out the show notes, everybody. We hope you have a happy holiday, and we want to make sure that you're following Texture versus Race. So that'll be in there too. Keep an eye on what they're up to because it's big things. So 2023, let's do it.
thank you.